there's been a large interest in El Sobrante on looking at increased parks. So I'm looking forward to hearing. I know what you all want to express, and I'll share some thoughts and as well about what opportunities exist, what challenges exist, so we can have a good, frank conversation about a path on this. So and talk about some history on this in El Sobrante as well. So yeah, look forward to it. So we may as well start. And I know we have more people joining us, a good turnout of folks. And I think it's set up so only we have one person talking at a time, right, James? And
we couldn't fix everything ahead of time, and I was going to ask folks just to mute yourself.
Yeah.
The background noise is, as everyone is probably familiar with after the last year, a little distracting. So if you can mute yourself until you get ready to speak, that would be most helpful. And for those that just popped on, maybe in the top left of your screen, you'll maybe it shows that it's recording. If not, we are recording. There have been about 8 more people that have popped in since I said it a few minutes ago.
Can I sign in as you again?
hello? Just those on phone, everyone should mute themselves. And let me just say thanks. And I know I'll turn it over to you, Sohaila, to sort of start some comments and then I can provide some comments, and then we can have some discussion and question and answers about it, sort of, informal, free flowing. And just to know, I mean, I do spend a lot of time on park issues. In fact, many years ago, back in, I think it was 2000 or 2001, in my first few years on the Board of Supervisors, myself and another supervisor actually worked with East Bay Regional Parks to try to pass a county-wide open space measure, a property assessment. And we came just a few votes short of getting the threshold we needed for a pretty substantial open space measure. And then back in 2016, I actually helped co-lead an effort in the Bay Area. Some of you may remember Measure AA, and which got 70% of the vote in the Bay Area, which raises $500 million for access and wetland restoration of San Francisco Bay, since I serve on the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority. So I have a lot of thoughts about how we would think about this. Also had some history on some of this in El Sobrante. So I'll just turn it over to you, Sohaila. And then we can go from there. So thank you, everybody, for your interest. And I know Citizens for a Greener El Sobrante has been interested in a particular site and other issues for many years.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Joya, for this opportunity. We really appreciate it. I would also like to thank James for recording, thank all the community members who are here, and I would like to acknowledge that we have representatives from different community groups, including Harpreet from the Sikh Center, Bruce from Track Steering Committee. I see some members of Freed and other groups. Thank you so much, everyone. I know many people are supporting this. Not everyone could attend tonight. That's why we're recording it. And thank you for that. I'll get back to you. We have, everyone please mute yourself. So we have prepared a relatively short presentation for you. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. We get it started. So this is simply a plea from 94803 community to you, Supervisor Joya, to please take action and apply for grant on Prop 68 for 2 reasons. One, El Sobrante Community Park, and the other one, creek restoration, San Pablo Creek restoration, and a bike pedestrian trail along the creek. San Pablo Creek is beautiful, it's gorgeous. However, most of us living in El Sobrante have never seen it because there is no public access to it. And now there's a golden opportunity to provide that public access. There is Maori property, which is an abandoned gas station, a parcel for sale. Its back is lying on the banks of San Pablo Creek. And if you turn it into a community park, the entire community can enjoy the beauty of San Pablo Creek. The location is excellent because within like 2 miles of its vicinity, there are no parks. One of the neighbors was telling me that she takes her children to Kennedy Grove to play on the playground. And if we do the restoration along San Pablo Creek, we'll be serving disadvantaged community here in purple and even severely disadvantaged community if we continue it. The potentials for amenities in the park are almost infinite. We provide not only public access and a trail for bikers and pedestrians, we can have playground, outdoor gym, dog park, place for art projects, farmers market, education opportunities, everything. So we are inviting you to please share our dream for a community park in El Sobrante. And just imagine all the possibilities that come with it. I was hearing on radio this morning that if you only spend 2 hours per week, just 2 hours per week in the nature, your body will make more cancer fighting cells. That's how good it is. And all the educational opportunities that it provides for school children prepares them to fight the climate change and take a good care of Mother Earth. This is what we have right now. And we can envision a beautiful cafe. In my vision, actually, is way more beautiful than this. We can do much better. And many more future improvements, including a disaster recovery hub. 94803 Emergency Preparedness Alliance is strongly for it. We can have a local museum, concerts, festivals, gardens for education and demonstration. And we are asking you, Supervisor Joya, to share our dream. And we hope that our aspirations inspire you to take leadership on this project. So this trail project not only provides access to enjoy the beauty of the park, walking, biking, and things like that, it helps with water quality, air quality, provides opportunity for fish and wildlife. And an important point is that we can provide security features like lighting and cameras to ensure community safety and excellent use of the park. Just imagine how we can identify all the amenities that go along the trail, along the San Pablo Creek, like it did along Wildcat Creek. Wildcat Creek, which is here along Wildcat Trail, along Wildcat Creek, connects to the Bay Trail, which is in red. And we can do similarly for San Pablo Creek. The blue line shows where San Pablo Creek is. And if you have a trail along it, it will go through this area. So at one corner, we have the library at one end of the trail. And next to it, we are proposing this park. And next to that, we can have a community center. And that's how we get a community hub all together. So this is Bank of America, this parcel. It is currently closed and chances are high that it will be closed permanently. So we can purchase that and turn it into a community center. That's the next step though. So for now, let's focus on the park. And it's not just a park. It also protects the natural area. It revitalizes the downtown. It's good for the businesses. And if we keep it, if it's going to be a nice park, definitely, it's good for our health and well-being. And when it's utilized and well taken care of, it will reduce the presence of the homeless. It has been concern of the community. I actually received a phone call today. Somebody was concerned. We need to address the issue, but not having a park does not solve the homelessness within the community. It's an issue within the community, within the society. It needs to be resolved. It needs to be addressed, but the solution is not avoiding a park or creek restoration. So it also helps to build a community. And talking about the community, I would like to draw your attention to diversity of our community, how diverse it is. We have almost all races and ethnic backgrounds, and people like me, foreign borns from all over the world, make up almost 26% of the population. 37% of households that speak a different language. Unfortunately, we have poverty to over 8%. So why is it important to have a community hub? El Sobrante has been drawing national attention, has been on CNN News too, for hate crimes and white supremacist activity. We would like to have a community hub to build a community by interactions of the members, collaborations, art projects, volunteer activities, educational opportunities. So instead of passively saying, not in my town, and condemn white supremacy, we can actively build cultural identity and take pride in diversity of our town. We can give new identity to El Sobrante. About the feasibility of this project, two main points. One is criteria, including 30-year operation and maintenance, and the other one is budget. The criteria defined by Water Conservation District about Proposition 66, we check mark all of the criteria. More specifically, they have specific objectives with specific scores like project location, community engagement, operation and maintenance considerations, project need, benefits, and readiness. Critical lack of parking space, criteria number 1, because El Sobrante has under 3 acres per 1,000 residents in half a mile radius. Actually, in this case, within 2-mile radius, we get full score. Type of project, it is a new park, provides accessibility, full score. Community-based planning, thanks to Citizens for Greener El Sobrante, who has been working on this within the community since 2012, we get the full score. There are some other things to do, like community survey and workshop we need to do. There is enough time to do it. Our full score is guaranteed. Employment or volunteer opportunities, there will be plenty of opportunities for that. Full score again. Partnership or committed funding. We have no committed funding, but with partnership, we will get full score. Right now, the partners are Contra Costa County, Citizens for a Greener El Sobrante. We need a health organization. They require a minimum of 3 partners, including a health organization. We hope that the county can identify a health organization, partner with it, so we can get the full score here too.
Does it have to be a nonprofit health organization, or could it be like the county?
No,
department?
any health organization.
So it could be the Contra Costa Health Services.
Exactly, yes. In terms of environmental design, to get the full score, you need to use certain criteria, certain specific elements within the design, and we can check mark all of that. We get a full score here. Public use fees and hours of operation, because there is no fee to enter the park and it will open every day dawn to dusk, we get full score. Community challenges, project benefits, and readiness. This was the only concern or challenge within the community we heard of. They're concerned about loitering by homeless. And as we mentioned before, you have done great, Supervisor Joya, addressing the issue of the homeless in past, and we have trust in you that you will continue to do so. And these issues have to be addressed. Homelessness and having a park separately and not having a park does not resolve the homeless issue, but the opposite. The more revitalized community we have in downtown, the less homeless population. Benefits are countless. We already talked about them. The amenities that are currently absent in the community, we can have them, socialization, education opportunities, and everything. let's talk about readiness. One of the concerns within the criteria is that we are able to take care and maintain the park for the next 30 years. So we can have different strategies to provide that. For example, the cafe in the renovated building can generate income. We can have a second floor to the cafe, lease it for housing that generates income, or businesses. We can charge vendors at the farmers market a fee. We can benefit from business improved district by El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce, which we have started negotiating with them. We can benefit from development impact fee funds. As you suggested, we can have a solar farm on the land owned by Contra Costa County, and under the solar panels, we can have nursery garden. And if the worst comes, we can have a 3rd-year bond measure. In terms of volunteerism, we have many groups that are ready to help in that regards. So overall, how are we doing? Excellent. The only thing we are not sure of is significant poverty. And as I mentioned, we are serving disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged areas. So we need to talk to the people at Prop 68 to find out what our exact score there is. But even if we get 0, we already have excellent chances of winning this. Let's talk about the budget. We try to consider all the items that are needed in the budget, from acquisition, the price of the land, $1 million, to restroom, to recycling containers, to outdoor gym, including 10% contingency. It comes up to 8.2 million. And the limit for the grant is 8.5 million. So,
And just to be clear, this is the budget for the park. This is separate from the creek issue.
no, it includes creek restoration.
Because I mean, I'm just looking at the part.
Partially.
Because I think the acquisition, the acquisition, I think for the Maori property at one time, it was listed for $1 million. It would be and I'll raise that because about 15 years ago, we raised the issue of the creek. So I'm glad to see this come up again. The cost to acquire the property along the creek and do that work, I think is a separate budget above this. This looks, I think the creek.
Oh, the creek, right.
Yeah, I meant the creek, the
assume-
whole creek trail, right? So hey,
I agree. I agree. We
yeah.
discussed it actually, and we think people will be happy to give that portion that is not constructible. They cannot build anything on it. It's not buildable. They can give it to county and get tax deduction.
So this is the creek area that would be fronting in the back of the Maori property, not the whole linear portion of the creek through the whole downtown area.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll let people from Greener, Citizens for Greener El Sobrante, to provide more details if needed. This is just
We don't have to go into
Yeah.
greater detail on that. That's okay. I
Okay.
just wanted to raise, I think this is the budget. This looks like a more realistic budget for the Maori Park area, not for, because I've been involved in a lot of these types of projects, not for the whole San Pablo Creek acquisition and trail. That would be separate.
Exactly. So what we propose for that community hub area is that we can go step by step. Start with this, which establishes the place and access to the park, and then eventually, do park creek restoration as well as community center.
Right.
Okay. So that pretty much concludes. And in summary, we're just asking for your leadership to please take the next step and apply for the grant on Prop 68. We do acknowledge that there are things left to do, like design, and we are confident the county can do it. The community survey that needs to be done, Citizens for a Greener El Sobrante is ready, willing, and able to do it. And partnership, as you suggested, we can find a health organization. The due date is 12th of March. There is not much time left, but it's sufficient to do all the things that are left to do. And we are asking you to please take the lead on it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Did anyone else want to add anything to along the way? I see folks who've worked on different projects. Josh, good to see you. I know we're working on a whole horizontal levee restoration project in North Richmond, and Josh used to live in El Sobrante. And I see Bruce on. I do want to acknowledge, Sharon, all of your work, Sharon Karat, and with Citizens for Greener El Sobrante over the years. So I just want to acknowledge, Sharon, all of your work over the years. And Harpreet, good to see you. And I know your work supporting the community from the Sikh Temple, and Bruce Byard with the Bay Trail, all of the amazing work to acquire Bay Trail. So you have a lot of great allies here.
So Hala, did you have someone from Citizens for Greener El Sobrante prepared to speak next?
They're not prepared, but they are sitting here on the side in case there are questions they're ready to answer. So
okay, we can have a discussion, sure. So first, thank you, Sahela, for putting together this detailed, obviously you've done thought and work in putting this presentation together. And I want to first say, and I was actually pleased to see raising the issue again of a path along the creek. I know that about 15 years ago, when the county was working on some general plan updates along San Pablo Dam Road, we were considering setting up a redevelopment agency, which of course redevelopment no longer exists. And one of the issues I know I raised with the chamber and the community was the vision of having a path along San Pablo Creek. And I know that would take a lot of work with all the neighboring property owners who would have to then be willing to sell off a portion of their property fronting the creek. So and we, at one time, we hoped during redevelopment that was an option, but we did not set up a redevelopment district in El Sobrante because of opposition. Oh, by the way, Bruce says everyone's video image is frozen. Is that true? Everybody see each other?
No, just on his screen.
Okay. And so, Bruce, can you hear us? Maybe he'll have to type in if he can.
It seems like the presentation is still up rather than the participants.
Yeah, that would, we
okay,
can.
I'm gonna stop sharing and
Thank you.
See each other.
it's in Google Doc format because many committee members have contributed to it. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So let me talk a bit about what it would take, I think, because and you sort of laid out the capital, and then there's operation and maintenance. So and I'll talk a little bit about what the county's approach has been, because I'm somewhat limited also by the structure of how the county has done this. So unlike cities, Contra Costa County does not have a parks department or park and rec department, right? We mostly do health and social services and the criminal justice departments. And so wherever there are county owned parks, they're in areas that have an established assessment district, like in Montalvan Manor, Terra Hills, right? There's a baseball field and a community center in Montalvan Manor that has an assessment on that neighborhood. There's some other ones in the San Ramon Valley and other parts of the county. So the county doesn't it have any parks department. It only establishes parks where it is able to bring in a funding source for maintenance, which is sort of why you're seeing, the type of park development around the El Sobrante Library. About 20 years ago, there was not a park there. It was basically overgrown ivy, a lot of non-native. And then the Watershed Project Spawners volunteer group worked very hard to clear the banks of the creek near the library, and a lot of great volunteer effort. And over time, we took about $1 million in what we would call one-time park development fees. There are development park fees collected on every new house that's built in unincorporated El Sobrante, and there's not a lot. that's being built. So in fact, right now we have under $50,000 in that account. But over the past 15 or so years, we put in about, I'd say, $1 million into building that community space behind the library, a reading garden, remodeling and improving the Friends of the Library building, renaming it the Nancy Fadden House, and providing space to the El Sobrante Historical Society to have a home there. So now it houses both the Friends and the El Sobrante Historical Society. So, and the reason we did that around that site, because it's county-owned land, the library provides some maintenance, and we tried to put in the kinds of vegetation and improvements that would require very little maintenance, because we don't have a maintenance funding source. So that was about $1 million. So that's, not a community center, but more of a, as they say, a smaller community space, and then the space around the library. So in order to take on a larger park, you've identified one source for the capital funding, Prop 68. There could be others we could look at. Probably the biggest issue in trying to get our public works department and county government on board, despite whatever I may advocate, is the need for an ongoing funding source. Way back, I think in the 1970s, a group of El Sobrante residents put a park measure on the ballot, needed 2/3 vote, and it fell far short of that. That was way back in the 70s. So I think any idea that any sort of plan that we want to develop on acquiring a park would need to be coupled with that type of funding source. And we're doing some extra research on this for another area, but right now it takes a 2/3 vote to pass a measure. There is been some new court rulings that have allowed initiatives to pass with a majority vote. So if the public, the community work to place an initiative on the ballot that would be a tax measure for parks, that may only require a majority vote. So we'd have to double check that in the context of this issue, but which would be a big a big advantage. I think passing a 2/3 measure in unincorporated El Sobrante is very, very hard. I know that there was a measure, we worked with the community a few years ago that was interested in having a resident deputy just for El Sobrante, working with the community on crime prevention and things like that. And that needed a 2/3 vote, and I think it got somewhere in the low 60s. But if the initiative is an option, that may only require a majority. And of course, having strong community support, which I know exists by many for a park, would be important for the assessment, for any kind of assessment, figuring what the cost of that would be. And we'd have to figure out, what's a reasonable cost to maintain the park. Because even with all the great volunteer efforts, and I think, you've identified some really good volunteer efforts, that's probably not going to be enough to maintain a park. That would maybe it could help and reduce the maintenance cost, but you're going to need to have some maintenance funding source to be realistic about it. And even, Prop 68, I think, is an opportunity. Even without it, there may be other opportunities, but clearly this is an immediate opportunity to look at. And yes, it could be a first step towards a larger creek trail. I think there are a number of funding sources that could be available for a creek trail. I've always believed it would be really amazing and great to have a path along San Pablo Creek. I know some of the restaurants may not want to give up that space, and maybe there is a way to have joint use, but because it's pretty tight through the back of those properties. And just know that there may be some opposition from residents who live on the other side of the creek to doing some of this. We've heard that in the past. So it's just
Thank you for mentioning that. I was going to say those residents aren't here, so.
Yeah, right.
we should-
So, you know, we
Parents
want to
mention
build
that.
support. If you can believe it, there was actually some opposition to building the reading garden at first because people thought it would be too noisy back there, and it hasn't turned out that way. It was actually, I think, a very good improvement to build all those improvements around the El Sobrante Library. So those are some general thoughts. I think it's really an exciting opportunity. I know there will be a presentation by the county's planning department at the next MAC meeting in which would,
March 10th.
yeah. And so it's a good opportunity to weigh in about putting into the plan, you know, some vision about a creek trail. I know that there's a lot of new policies on health and sustainability and we actually put those in the general plan for El Sobrante a few years ago when we modified the plan. One of the things that changed in the previous plan, and this is relevant, I think, just for all of this, is all the properties along San Pablo Dam Road and Appian Way at one time were all listed as only commercial. And in the last general plan update, which was just for El Sobrante, we changed that for a number of properties to allow mixed use, to allow residential on top of commercial, which would, if the property owners wanted to do that, didn't force them to do it, and created more opportunity for people downtown to support businesses and provide appropriate housing opportunities. And I think the proposed changes to the new general plan take that further and may actually make pretty much all of the Dam Road downtown and along Appian Way allow mixed use development, you know, within limitations. But so
Supervisor Joy, that is correct. Will Nelson confirmed that's the proposed for the downtown as mixed use.
So you'll have I think this is a good opportunity for people to weigh in about the park issue. Now, the general plan identified for many years a community square, a downtown community square across the street in the parking lot for Mechanics Bank. And I reached out to Mechanics Bank many years ago. They've changed ownership several times. They used to be locally owned out of Richmond. They're no longer locally owned, to try to see if there was interest for them to donate their parking lot across the street for a park and a community square. And so at that time, they were not interested in that. Whether things are different today, I don't know. It's always possible to explore that. But the general plan does currently have that area as a park. And one of the issues which the community can raise at the MAC meeting is whether to express a vision for the Maori property. Now, the cleanup issues are never clear, and I know you budgeted an item, and since I'm on the Air District Board, and I can tell you that cleaning up old gas stations is always more expensive than you first estimate. So that, you know, we don't really know the cost of what that cleanup will be. It could be higher. Again, there would need to be more analysis. So I think, but ultimately the concept of there's been for years El Sobrante support in the community for trying to do something on the Dam Road to create some type of community space and park, whether it was at the Mechanics Bank site or another site like this site. So I think one of the things to do is also thinking about, if this site doesn't work, are there other sites too that present opportunities? And I realize this site is Front and is great because it's on the creek. It's a relatively large site. It's sort of vacant. I don't think there's anyone on it living in the back in one of the homes now. It's just been sitting there. So it presents an opportunity. So those are I think some general thoughts is, I think in order to get the county sort of on board with wanting to take on a park, so this is really the biggest issue, is how to develop community support for funding measure for parks. I actually raised that also 10, 15 years ago, and I think there was not real strong support to do it at that time. So I think it's really about creating a community movement to support parks, and because it can't be just about it can't be just about one-time capital. It's the same issue the East Bay Regional Parks District is having.
I work there. The only place I work here because it's building me because Wi-Fi here.
People just. Yep,
Can you stay here?
so, and by the way, thank folks like knowledge. It's great to see 50
You
people.
want, you can get a blanket for my car.
So the Parks District
I
needs
can
to
go.
put, some maintenance measures on the ballot because it needed the funding to be able
Somewhere get food if you want.
to maintain the property that it was purchasing. So I think, and I'm glad to explore sort of this grant opportunity with our Public Works Department. I'm sure I'll hear back, okay, what's the plan for maintenance? Because the grant does, I think, require, I think, some plan for maintenance that we currently don't have. And I'm not sure how they rely on volunteer efforts to maintain a pretty sizable park. So I live in Richmond. In fact, I live at Marina Bay, and we pay an additional assessment on top of whatever city taxes we pay for them to maintain the parks. So we would do some analysis. We know that. Gee, I forgot. We had looked at this when the sheriff's measure was done. I'm trying to think if that measure would have raised about 200,000 a year, and that was around maybe somewhere around $60 per parcel. So that's round numbers. I mean, we'd have to look at. We can do that analysis, but so it seems like 200. You raise about 200,000 a year from around a $60 tax. So again, that's an older number, an estimate. We would update it. We'd have to understand what would it cost to do maintenance? Do we want to include in there funding for more acquisition, or is it just for one park? So those are some general thoughts, and I appreciate the thought you've put into this. I guess my first question is there interest in really trying to build support in the community for a park measure? And it's always easier to get support if we have a specific site, right? So if there's a site that makes it easier. And someone asked, is it possible to do a parcel tax that goes across unincorporated versus city of Richmond and San Pablo? Really, really good question. And so getting back to this, 20 years ago, I did, and we have it sitting around the office, a park needs assessment for the El Sobrante Valley. So it's sort of outdated. It included the city and the unincorporated area because, right, whether you live in the city or unincorporated area, just like fire, you use services and parks across boundaries, right? There are people who live in unincorporated El Sobrante who may go into a city park that's in the city part of El Sobrante. And at the time, I know when I talked to Richmond, and this was years ago about the idea of working together, there wasn't a lot of interest. The city has its own funding for park and rec. It would probably be really hard to put together a park district that crosses into the city. That would seem to make sense. I'm not sure there'd be as much interest. I think there's a challenge in doing that.
John,
and I know Mickey asked about the grant deadline. I mean, I could I can follow up with Public Works about this grant. I think we have to remember there may be other opportunities in the future. I mean, Josh may be more familiar than anyone on this meeting about other grant opportunities because I know he works in that space, and maybe even Bruce. But I could explore with Public Works. The question is whether there'd be a viable or strong grant application if there's not a maintenance funding source associated with it.
And John, I wanted to hop in real quick. We have about 20 minutes left. There are a couple of hands, virtual hands raised for comments or questions. Are you good with spending the last 20 minutes?
Yeah. And if we run over a little by 5, I'm fine with that if we run over a bit. And I mean, one of the things I think a outcome of this meeting is to put together a subset of individuals who are willing to work with our office on this more and identify who those individuals would be in order to do follow up on this.
Okay, so I will put my email address, and any persons interested should email me directly. And I will be partnering with Sohaila on setting up any future meetings that we may need to have on this job.
And so I'll call this, there's 4 hands that are up right now, and I was trying to answer the chat question.
And I saw them in order, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the first person that put their hand up was Pam Morris. Pam, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself and go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to thank Sohaila for such a thorough, comprehensive, realistic, and addressing the reality of doing a project like this. Also, John, I know you have tremendous experience with things not working out in the past. So I understand the hesitancy and the advice that you're giving. What I would like to say, just as an innocent member of the community, is 5 years ago, 10 years ago, everybody was on their cell phone. There was no a desire to be in nature. With COVID, people are desperate to be outside. And I can see this community center having a love and a desire and a hunger that did not exist 10 years ago, did not exist 5 years ago, did not exist 1 year ago. And I think what we need to do is we need to ride the wave of what I feel is a obvious desire that just does not have a leader to it. When I used to go to Starbucks before they closed, there was a community there that loved gathering. It was a small community, but you could see the hunger. When I go on Neighbor, which is that kind of local sort of Facebook kind of thing, I see the hunger for people to communicate, to share, to talk to each other. And there's such a hunger, and there's no place for us to go. And what we can do is take advantage of that wonderful park. And thank you, John, for being such a part of that at the library. And rather than thinking of this problem with all of the back property, like the little restaurants, just go from Bank of America, the Lodge, the Ace, and the car wash, and just have those people get great tax write-offs, so we don't even have to spend money. Yes, there's maintenance. Yes, it has to be restored. There are ways to do this. And the Bank of America, whether we can buy it or not, there's tremendous parking there, certainly in the evenings for events. And this could be, yes, the homeless problem has to be addressed on steroids. I'm not going to even bring that into this conversation. I think what we need to do is we need to know that people have a passion for this. It's just an unexpressed passion. We need to tap that. And then, John, with your great experience on everything that didn't work and couldn't work, we can overcome that and ride the wave of desire that's there now. So that's what I'm hoping.
Thanks. And I want to make sure my comments weren't expressing hesitancy. They're expressing advice about how we would want to proceed. And I think I've been involved in projects that have succeeded, and they've taken planning, thought, and intention, right? I help with measured, AA, which is 500 million for the Bay. I've helped with a $80 to $100 million count Measure X that just passed with 72% in my supervisorial district for county health and social services. So look, I am a big proponent for raising revenue for these things, but I also think it's important that everybody have a realistic and expectation understanding of what we need to do, because we will not be successful if I just make a promise and don't follow through with what the mechanics of it are. You need the vision, and I think there's great vision, but we also need the sort of the mechanics and operational part to translate that vision. And I think, like, for example, if we are able to build a connect, a creek along the trail, and I have visited, like I was visiting a site down in San Luis Obispo years ago that has a trail through the downtown along the creek in San Luis Obispo where they have business support. So I pick up ideas when I see that. And so I think likewise, how do we do that in El Sobrante? And if you're able to have a full trail, there's opportunities for more funding because it then becomes potentially a alternate bike path. So I wish there were tax write-offs we could give people to get funding, but let me be realistic. We need a funding measure. This isn't going to be done with just a one-time grant. So I'm not expressing hesitation. I'm expressing a vision. With you, I think that people are in a different place about spaces. I agree with you, but it will take all of us, the community, really working on building community support to do a measure to be able to maintain a park. I can tell you the county, and this is separate from me, is not going to take on the maintenance of a park unless there is a funding measure associated. I'm not saying that can't happen. I just think we need to be really thoughtful about how we do that. And we can look more into the Prop 68 requirements and how whether not having a identified funding source makes that grant harder to achieve. We can take a look at that issue. We can follow up. But and this effort that was done in the 70s, before my time, before I think most of us were around, so I don't know. I mean, that was in a different time in a different space. So you're right. Today's a very different situation. And I think a key question for us is whether we need a majority or 2/3 vote, depending how we do it.
And we have a couple more hands. Miss Warda.
My first name's difficult. I'm Anusha. Hi. I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, and I am a resident of El Sobrante. He's actually third generation here in El Sobrante. We are so desperate for a park. All we do is stay home, and when we can, we walk around El Sobrante. We walk to the park. We are one of the few people that hang out behind the library. Thank you so much. We love that space. It's always empty. That's fine right now. Happy, but I'm desperately into a playground, a park, a space to gather, even physically distance. Where can we do that? Right? We don't have anywhere. We have to get in our car and drive to Kennedy Grove if we need to. I'm so glad to hear you. I've heard you say, Supervisor Joya, that you are with us, that you're not hesitating. I get that there's complications, that we have to have a plan. Sohaila, as you can see, is not alone, and she is organized. She's putting in the time and effort. I fully support this vision and plan. But if we have to start small, that's fine. Let's just start small, do what we can, and we'll keep building, right? But let's do something there, because I really appreciated that you put that picture of what it looks like now.
And one thing, I think there's an advantage to the Maui property because it's on the creek, but let's say Mechanics Bank, that we still have the same maintenance issues, but let's say Mechanics Bank said, and I'm not saying they will, and who knows, but okay, the area that's designated in your general plan for a community center park in downtown El Sobrante, our parking lot, we don't need that anymore, and we'll donate that. Is that something the community wants to consider, right? On the other side of the street, different site, I think, frankly, the biggest challenge in a lot of this is getting ongoing maintenance money, that it's often, I don't say easy, but often easier to try to identify the one-time capital money. It can take time, but the bigger challenge is getting the maintenance dollars. So but that's something is there openness to thinking about different sites if this site doesn't work? Are there other sites? But thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my time's done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Mubin Kader. I apologize if I'm.
No, you're actually perfect. So, Supervisor Joya, I think like we're really distracting by the maintenance costs. Let's be serious. I mean, let's say if what I'm hearing is like the county, like Contra Costa County, as big as it is, and the resources it has, and the value it adds to the Bay Area, and the kind of revenue it gets. I mean, we cannot maintain an additional cost of like an acre and a half park space. Let's put it that way. Like let's quantify that cost. Like let's say like Contra Costa has to add an FTE, a position, a maintenance worker, park maintenance worker. It costs like how much? Like $75,000 a year, including benefits. So like, and that means you have one full park person, 8 hours a day, sitting in the park maintaining that. That's not going to happen. It'll be like weekly or like, one tour, like shared by the other areas, other, tasks and all that. So I think maintenance needs to be explored in a different way. I don't think if that could be a deterrent from investing $8.5 million free dollar from the state into the community, which in return is going to raise the property taxes for the county. So I see there should not be any issue for the county of Contra Costa Counties to actually absorb the maintenance costs from the general fund, because it's an investment in the county. It's going to reduce healthcare costs because they will be like, as you know, there's so much research done in the out there, which how having a park space in the community helps lowers the public health cost in the community. And I know like it's a great point. We need to keep that in mind, ongoing maintenance costs. But then at the same time, I think it's something which is really inflated, and we should not get focused on that and actually make the investment of $8.5 million, which is free money by the state. And I think it just needs to be prioritized. El Sobrante has been like the backyard which we never clean of the county. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, this is what I look. I mean, I drive around San Pablo Dam Road. I live on Appian Way. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm thankful for your leadership, and I know you're a great leader. But I mean, I'm sorry. Like go like drive like 2 miles to San Pablo. It looks totally different. I drive the minute I enter into the city of Richmond's limit, it's different. But like El Sobrante, I'm sorry, like the property values are going up like so high here with the existing taxes. And I think the county can absorb the maintenance costs within the existing resources. And this investment, $8.5 million, we cannot let that go just because we can't hire a half FTE, which is not even $50,000 a year. And I bet like there won't be 50,000. That person, whoever is the additional FTE, will not be spending all of their time in that park 8 to 5. It will be shared among other properties and county properties. So that's just mine.
So I know that seems to, believe me, that seems to sound logical, makes sense. Let me tell you why it doesn't. Contra Costa County, while it's a large county, we have funding sources that are from federal government, state, and local property tax, and now some sales tax. Much of the revenue we get is money that has to be spent for certain things, has to be spent on health, has to be spent running the food stamp program, has to be spent on Head Start preschool. Every dollar we spend on something, new dollar on something, has to come out of some other program. Mental health, public defender, district attorney, sheriff, library. So it may, and then, there are about 200,000 people that live in the unincorporated areas, and it's the largest square mile in the county. Is not a city, it's all our unincorporated land. And so if the county had decided to use its general fund to fund parks in Alamo, El Sobrante, Rodeo, North Richmond, Kensington has its own park district, so I'll skip that one. Byron, Bay Point. What you mentioned is very little money, quickly grows into millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars a year. I see what the budget is for those districts that have assessments. sit in my chair and tell people we're going to cut mental health services because we have to fund a park. Sit in my chair and tell people we have to cut preschool because we need to build a park. I wish I could say yes and that what you said is accurate. Unfortunately, it isn't. It's just the reality that we deal with, which is why the county doesn't have, as I say, does not have park districts. So it has these park department. It has districts it sets up with a funding mechanism. Now, we have passed Measure X to fund health, social services, fire, emergency medical, which will be helpful to us. But we would have to get an estimate from Public Works over how much it costs to set up a park district. North Richmond is in need of more parks. We've invested $1 million in one-time park dedication funds to a nonprofit to build an urban farm. So the money that we have had, we've used in ways with community-based organizations as well. Now, if eventually we had park dedication funds to buy a park, and I say there's only about 50,000 in that fund now, and there's very little development planned in unincorporated El Sobrante, we could also work with community-based organizations, but that's not a path to support a park. So I want to be realistic, and I know that is not always what people want to hear, but I am saying I would be supportive to work with the community to build support for a funding measure. I'm not going to cut funding to our hospital. We have gone from 25 million a year to 80 million a year to support our hospital and 11 clinics for healthcare. So, and my colleagues aren't going to vote for a park in El Sobrante without wanting a park in Bay Point and a park in Rodeo and a park in Discovery Bay and a park in Pacheco. So there are many communities in this county that would seek a similar, and there's just no funding to do that. I wish I could say something else, but I'm being positive and optimistic. I think we can build support for a measure in El Sobrante, just like we build support 72% to fund health and social services, and people passed a half-cent sales tax. So I'm optimistic, and I'm willing to spend my political capital to do that, but it has to be in conjunction with the community that will help support it too. And I think there's a great critical mass of folks here and out in the community who would.
And I can thank you so much for your response. I'm sorry, can I piggyback?
We have quite a few other people.
Sure, go ahead.
I apologize
No
for being
worries,
that,
no
but
worries.
I'm going to try to get to everyone. Thank
no
you.
worries.
So next is Will Plute.
Yeah, hi. First, Sohaila, great presentation, and Supervisor Drea, thanks for doing this. So I actually live in the city of Richmond, but I'm out here by practically at the dam. So there's a bunch of Richmond neighborhoods that are out in the far end of El Sobrante.
Right.
In fact, for me to get to Richmond, I drive through El Sobrante.
Right.
And my other interest is that, and it's been mentioned, so I'd like to piggyback on that one, is interest in bike lanes. Right now, the county's doing a study of whether bike lanes are feasible for the San Pablo Dam Road. And the county at the moment is saying probably not. And a really big problem is downtown El Sobrante. It's just, there's so much traffic there and there's not space. And so I love the idea of a community center connected with a bike trail that could get you from Appian to El Portal or through El Sobrante. So if that helps, having a bike lane helps the feasibility, helps with the funding, I think that would be fabulous. It would solve that big problem. And then the other thing is, so I'm president of the Greenbrier Neighborhood Council. There's also Carriage Hills North and South. There's El Sobrante Hills. There's May Valley. All of that part of Richmond is funnels through El Sobrante. I mean, we're really more related to El Sobrante than Richmond, honestly. So you mentioned in the past trying to talk to Richmond about some kind of cooperative thing. And I think, like I said, we're underrepresented in terms of parks in our entire area, and trying to follow up on that in some way, I think would be really great.
Yeah, I know there's Lemoyne Park, right, in the city part of El Sobrante. the response I've gotten from the city in the past is if they say, if we're going to do something like this, we want to do it citywide. We don't want to do it. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, there is, I just think I've worked with Richmond for a long time and working with them on a lot of issues now. I just, my belief is, the reality is it will be really hard to get Richmond to agree to set up an assessment measure just for that part of Richmond. Maybe they will, and it's always worth exploring. I do think that that's an opportunity, but we work with them on some issues in North Richmond that are sort of similar, but we'll see if that's a possibility. I was just raising the experience in the past, and yeah, I think if there were a complete linear path along San Pablo Creek from Appian Way to El Portal, that could be a bike lane as well as, you know, pedestrian. I think that's a great opportunity, and I'm committed to continuing to work with property owners on that. As I say, we came up with that idea when we looked at redevelopment, but at that time there was opposition by some in El Sobrante who did not want to have redevelopment, so the county did not establish a redevelopment area. But it does involve, then it means working with property owners to get them to agree to sell, because they're not going to give it away, right? To sell their land. Some of these are small property owners that don't have a lot, you know, they're not big developers. So, you know, but I think we should keep that on the table of looking at that, because there are some funding opportunities on that as well.
Okay. David's iPhone. Please unmute yourself. David's iPhone.
Hello, how you doing? Sorry.
Hi.
So as we've been talking and I've been listening to you, I've gone on to the county's website and I've been going through the parks that we do fund maintenance for. And right now the county is funding the maintenance for Montera Bay Community Center, which is actually in the city of San Pablo, and Montalvan
Not in
Park, which is in the city of San Pablo,
It's
and Rodeo Creek Trail, which is in the city of Rodeo. So I think that if we just look at, and there's a lot of other parks that are like in the city of San Ramon and school district of San Ramon.
Oh, did we lose you? Can folks hear me?
We can hear you. I'm not sure what happened to.
So the Montalvan Manor, Terra Hills, is not in the city of San Pablo. It is unincorporated, and it is funded, as I said at the outset, with a tax. I didn't say the county doesn't fund parks. It has funding when there is an established assessment district and a funding measure. So there is a very small tax collected to pay for the Montalvan Manor baseball fields and community center. Rodeo is not a city. It's unincorporated, and there's also a funding mechanism. As I say, so there are parks in unincorporated areas funded where there is an established tax measure or assessment to fund those parks. And that's what I'm suggesting we look at for El Sobrante.
Thank you for your comment, David. Next is Marilyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn Sarney.
Did you pass over Harpreet? I see him up here.
No, I did not.
I wasn't able to.
Yeah, she wasn't able to raise her hand, so she.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
Harpreet's next.
I'm not jumping the line, folks.
I see you, Sharon.
but I wanted to say that I really do think the circumstances have changed a lot for the zip code 94803. I also would like to say I think things are going to really change in 2022 when the Richmond residents in 94803 at long last get their own district representative. That's going to be gigantic because I think they've had one person from Carriage Hills ever serving in the on the city council ever. I mean, that's pretty disgusting when you think about it. So we're all pretty excited about that, those of us in Richmond. But I'm just thinking that may open up a new possibility for an expanded base
Mhm.
for parks here. I'd like to also say that Lemoyne is not a very nice park in lots of ways. It's really filthy and there's nothing flat. There's not a decent tot lot that's fenced and safe. And well, you know, I think the coyotes actually represent sort of an issue there too, especially with the recent issues that people have been having conflicts with them. But I just would like to say that I think the need is much bigger than just this one little park here.
Mhm.
And City of Richmond in 94803 will have a different power standing in the future. So might be able to cooperate. There are, Lemoyne really, when you look at all the parks by acreage elsewhere in Richmond, we're way, way underserved here.
Yeah. Well, Marilyn, there's some issues with Richmond is in the past, you know, when the county has collected, and I wasn't suggesting Lemoyne Park to replace, I was just saying that's a park in the city part of the valley.
Mhm.
And Richmond had, I don't know how they're doing it now, but when they every house that's built collects a fee, I don't know whether it's $15,000 a house or something, 20 toward parks. And for many years, Richmond put its funding into a citywide account, whereas the money is supposed to be spent in the community where that house is located. Oops, hold on, my cat's getting out.
Let's see, now that's it. Oh, he's gone. But I just want to say the other thing is what kind of proposed development is there going to be for housing in El Sobrante Valley? Because it seems we're
Right.
way overdue.
My cat, which got out, which, okay. So what the county does is all the park money it collects from any housing built in unincorporated El Sobrante stays in El Sobrante.
Mhm.
And in Richmond, that hadn't been the case. And so many years ago, residents in the El Sobrante Valley said, you're not spending in El Sobrante all the park fees you're collecting in El Sobrante. So that's an issue that Richmond faced years ago. I don't know if they changed it, whether that's partially responsible. They have built thousands. In fact, they have annexed vacant land over a period of 30, 40 years and built thousands of units. And there's very little development that happens in the unincorporated area. That's why there's not a lot of funding of the one-time park dedication money. The money that Richmond collects is used by the city of Richmond, and they've often spent that park money outside of the El Sobrante Valley. So the other concern that folks, I think, were worried about is if you include Richmond in a tax measure, there are folks who believe or are concerned that Richmond was going to take the other monies, general fund monies that it was using to support parks in El Sobrante, which is not a lot, shift it to another part of the city and use the new money and not really end up with anything new. So, and plus, even with district, I live in the Marina Bay part of Richmond. We have district council members now. It still will take a majority of the city council to approve any. So if you want my prediction, and I'm still willing to work with Richmond, I'm just saying, and I've been around for a long time, and I've worked with all the cities for a long time, that I'm just predicting it will be very hard to get them to do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't try, but if you want my best experience, I'm just saying that. And that's why I think our best approach is starting with building support in unincorporated El Sobrante. And if we can add and bring along the Richmond part to join in a measure, that we can always do that.
All right, moving, Harpreet, you're next, and then Sharon Karokin, then Sarah Creeley, and then we want to be mindful of everyone's time. We're 10 after 5, so that is the order. Harpreet.
Thank you. And Sohaila, thank you for bringing this subject forward and the need. I've lived on Dam Road, along Dam Road since 1977, 78, and we really need a park in this area. And even though Supervisor Joya, you may sound pessimistic, but you're laying the ground out of what our challenges are. So, and when you talk about funding and like you expressed it, those are categorical funding that do come in for other, be it for healthcare and so forth, and they are very much in need and to be spent for the what have been dictated to. Having served on City of Richmond, I know that Richmond per acreage has probably the largest number of park spaces acreage than any of the cities around us. And while on the city council, it was very hard to be able to fund many of the parks there as well. So when we do move forward, I am skeptical about how much Richmond is willing to come forward and do that. But what's really important is that Supervisor Joy, having worked with the offices, your office always found ways to help us to bring this problem somehow to fruition. And we really do look forward for that leadership in that, even though we may not have the answers today. James, I've had a chance opportunity to speak to him a couple of times. Your staff, I really look forward to having that facilitation with us and with Sohaila to be able to move forward with this. And if that means putting something forward like we did in the late 70s, and I would be all for it. I think the whole valley has changed and our needs and concerns have changed. And we do have a good priority in our mindset to have a park in this area, which I think builds a better community. So I won't take much time. I know many other people want to speak, but let's move forward and hope we can move forward to be bringing this park to fruition. So thank you all, and thank you, Supervisor Joya, and thank you, Sohaila.
Thank you, Harpreet. Sharon Karokin.
Thanks, James. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. There's an urgency to this moment because the parcel is, the ability to obtain the parcel is very fleeting. And it's such a magnificent, if you haven't seen it, if there's somewhere you can, I certainly urge
remember,
everyone.
I've been out on the site. I think when you were there, I've been out and toured the site a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, it's a very special parcel and you can't compare it to Mechanics Bank across the way or any other piece of land. It is truly special. And the Maoris have cleaned it up. The owners are the Maoris, for you who may not know. And they have cleaned it up. It's certified clean. They've got all the certifications for that. There's no more that needs to happen to that parcel to make it clean. And they have demolished all the buildings. So it's just land. The only structure on it now is the front defunct gas station. And I want to reiterate that in the budget that Sohaila went through, there is funding in there. I think we put in 1.6 million to develop the cafe, or if it's a cafe or some retail establishment down below, and then building housing, 1 or 2 levels of housing with solar on top. And that's in that budget. And that component alone will generate revenue for maintenance and operations, plus all the other bullet points that were listed there for maintenance. You brought up when we took the tour, that picture of you on the tour there, it's a lovely picture. You brought it up about having a solar farm on the 10-acre property that could fund maintenance. So there are options, there are possibilities, and I just don't believe that we can't figure that out. Yeah. So I want to thank everybody, all this wonderful support from the community. It's building. You know, we've been working on this for years and it is building, but this is an urgent, we have to seize this moment. If we want that parcel, we'll never find another parcel in El Sobrante as spectacular as that piece of property. It's just one, it fits so many dreams that anyone could possibly have for a park. It can accommodate all of those. Right. So I urge you, please do it. We'll do everything we can to help, but we need to have that design. I'm wondering, does the county have experience with Prop 68?
I know the county's applied for a lot of state kinds of grants in this area. So I'd have to find out about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And then we've got Sarah Creeley, and then Sohaila and John for some final comments. Pam, I see your hand up, but we are running a bit short on time, Pam Moore. So please email me or give me a call. Sarah Creeley?
Hi, I live in Hercules, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciate Sohelia's presentation. It was so thorough. What an excellent job you did explaining your reasoning, and it's clear you did a lot of research. I also really appreciate Supervisor Joya, your invitation to this meeting. I just wanted to compare what my experience growing up with my young child in Hercules has been. Having the park was something daily that we would do, going to Refugio Valley Park. It was so important for her. It was such a thing for her. And I just feel that, you know, parks are very vital for people's mental health. And I feel that, I'm not saying take money from health for the park, but I am saying that I feel that to build community, to build a healthy place for people to go, including people who are homeless, and you know, you can figure that out, but not to live there. But I mean, for everyone, I feel that it's a very important thing. And it just really bothers me, the lack of equity between what my experience is in Hercules and what is described as non-existent, you know, where you're talking about in El Sobrante, and it just seems so unfair. And I just had to say that I strongly support it. And, you know, we did an initiative to stop development at Franklin Canyon. Sierra Club helped. Maybe the Sierra Club could help a little with educating people about the value of having a park. There are things I just believe that, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think this meeting has shown that there is that will. And so I just really support it, and I'm willing to put some hours in and do education like we did to stop the development of Franklin Canyon. I feel that with people working together, it is possible, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
My apologies, I'm on mute. John and Sohaila for some final comments. Sohaila, you wanted to say a couple
what I
things?
was going to suggest, and here's and then I'll come back, is I think those of you who are interested in being part of a working group on this should email James, and I think James put his email, and we could set up, you know, a roll up our sleeves working group. Look, I'm committed to working on this. I don't think you want to hear another elected official just promise you something and not deliver. That's not me. That's not who I am. I don't make a promise and just say, oh yeah, I can do this. Let's do it. I want to identify what's the path that this would take. So we're realistic about it. Nothing I've ever achieved happened because on a project like this because I made it up. It happened because of a lot of hard work, teamwork, community. But if we don't understand the path we need to take, we're not going to get it done. Doesn't mean it can't get done. It just means we have a path. You've heard, I think, you hear plenty of promises from people who just, you know, make a promise for that moment because that's the thing to do. I'm focused on how do we make this happen. I've worked with some of you on this call and others on projects that take a long time. So I think El Sobrante is a different place than it was decades ago when that park measure failed. I think there's a lot more people in El Sobrante who support parks. There's a lot of new residents who understand that. I think there is an ability to look at building support. And if it only takes a majority vote, and we'll look at that issue through an initiative, this is a chance for the community to build support through an initiative. You've worked hard to develop a petition. And if we did the same under an initiative process, that again, we'll check that legally, that may be an opportunity instead of the county putting the measure on the ballot, which would require 2/3 vote. So my suggestion is to get a working group of people who want to work together on this, with us to look at. We'd look at the Prop 68 grant opportunity some more, but also and look at the larger issue of a measure as well.
Sohaila for closing comments. Oh, and my email and phone number are in the chat. So Haley's is in there. please do reach out to us.
And I want to thank Sohaila, thank you for, and Sharon and everyone who's been involved in this effort over many years.
Of course, thank you. Yeah, everyone, please email James and me, and we're going to reach out to you and continue on what Supervisor Joya suggested. John, I really appreciate your being honest, transparent, and committed. And we're going to count on every one of those. I'm going to report to the community. I really support community. I mean, appreciate community support. Actually, they are the ones who asked us to do it, do this. They helped us with the Google Doc presentation, everything. So thank you, everyone. We need your continued support. We're going to move forward. John, I know you don't have a magic wand. Everybody knows that. I know you're busy. You didn't plan for this in your schedule. You don't have extra time to do this. We know everything. We know it's hard. It's not easy. What we are asking you is commitment and going one extra mile to make it happen. Time is of essence. We would like to try for Prop 68. We have less than 4 weeks. We can give it a try. We are committed to do it. Maybe on the application, we can say we're planning to have a measure there. As a real estate agent, I know we can easily make $5,000 a month from the units we're going to build on top of that. And more revenue sources. Sharon talked about, Mubin talked about. We need commitment from you and your office that we can have our first meeting this week, sit at the table at Zoom, of course, go over the numbers, talk with Public Works, see realistically, objectively, what number, what figure are we talking about? What are our possible sources? How much each one of them have? Go over it. I don't want us to come back 5 years from now and say, oh, we brought it up 5 years ago and we were supposed to work on it. We didn't get anywhere, you know? We're going to lose esteem gradually and then end up where we are right now. And then be sorry again 5, 10 years from now. We're going to do it this time. We need your commitment to get it done, whatever it takes. It's difficult. And as somebody mentioned, we are the orphan child here within El Sobrante and Richmond. 94803 is one community, but because of those artificial lines, city and county do not cooperate as they're supposed to do. Well, enough is enough. It's the time for cooperation, as hard as it is for the politicians. We would like to ask you, please come together, do whatever it takes, make it happen. It's not easy. We understand you. We hear you. Believe me, we hear you. We all have professions that deal with similar projects. Budget is a main problem, but we believe you can surpass this. Together, we can surpass this. We can have that partnership and just move forward. That's all we expect from you, and we count on you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have shared it with you. We know you can do it and take the lead. We are your partners, but there's so many things your office can initiate. We cannot do it we cannot call people around, ask this. We cannot apply. It's your office that can do it. County has to do it. So please take the lead. We fully support you. We have all the volunteers with different expertise, and their volunteer time, as difficult as it is for them, they're here for us, for you to take the lead.
I appreciate that. And I'll work to set up I think we need to get a small group meeting soon. Today's Wednesday, so it's going to be next week, right? It's not going to be Thursday or Friday. But I will reach out to Public Works in the meantime about the grant process. And we need to check whether we need to have site control of the property that you're seeking the funding for. That's going to be a key question. I don't know the answer to that, of whether, since we don't have site control or ownership of that property, whether or not that is a prerequisite for the grant. So we could check. I don't know the answer to that. So, but I think we need a small working group meeting here pretty quickly, and we can work, Sohaila, to try to do that next week.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We'll have it.
A lot of time on vaccine rollout. We're doing mobile vaccines. We're really focused. Talk about equity. I've been following the numbers, and El Sobrante's doing much better, but Richmond and San Pablo and other communities have lower percent of people vaccinated. So that's been the priority of a lot of us, and our public works staff, frankly, is working on setting up mobile vaccine clinics. So just know they've got a lot on their plate. They will be responsive to me but they are dealing with, right, the rollout of the vaccine. And so, but I'll find out a bit about the Prop 68 requirements, and then we'll get a working group next week.
Thank you. By the way, Prop 68 website says they're ready to answer any questions. They're willing to help the county or the applicants get the application ready, answer their questions. We cannot because we are not the entity, but the county can get many answers.
Yeah, and they may, and there may be folks that have experience with that, and that may have experience. And I want to say, whether or not Prop 68 is it's not. It's always good to have something right ahead of us, right, that we can look at. There may be other opportunities that come up, and so I don't want us to lose faith or momentum, even if we don't get a Prop 68 grant, right? As I think is looking at what are, I mean, clearly capital is a big part of it, but we'll look at that, and we'll get a meeting next week.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thanks,
everyone.
thanks for putting this together, and thanks everybody for being supportive and active and part of this, and we'll work together.
All right, everybody. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for an hour and 27 wonderful minutes of community comment. I'd also like to direct everyone the second Wednesday of every month, the El Sobrante Municipal Advisory Council meets. You can email me directly if you'd like to receive the agenda. Also, one of our El Sobrante MAC members, Mickey Norris, is participating, organizing a community cleanup event. Mickey, if you put your email address in the chat, I won't close the meeting right away so folks can have a chance to get your email address. Any questions or comments, my email and phone number are in the chat. Do not hesitate to give me a call or an email. I will get back to you. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
you.
You and
Thank
I
you.
will be best friends until this project
you.
is done.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. That'll be good. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.